Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Detour Live, and we are super excited for this edition because we're going to be previewing the 2021 Paris-Roubaix, and it is going to be absolutely epic. I'm your host, Dan Jones, joined as always by four-time National Road Champion from Australia, Johnny Trevorrow, 2007 Paris-Roubaix winner, Olympic gold medalist, and a man that's won motor races, Stuart O'Grady, and he's obviously the race director for the Santos Tour Down Under as well. Fellas, I suppose we should obviously talk about the race yesterday, the first ever edition of the women's Paris-Roubaix. And I must admit, I was expecting the conditions to be a lot worse than what they were, iffy. And when we saw the images, it was still wet, but it sounds like the bad weather's been passed on to the men for tonight.
A little bit of that, although we don't know exactly how wet it was at the start because we didn't get to see anything of that. I was a bit disappointed where, we've got this wonderful women's race, first time ever for the Paris-Roubaix for the ladies, covered brilliantly by FPS, but they couldn't get the footage until like 11 o'clock at night or something, and it was 50k to go. So we didn't see the early parts where it did rain a bit, evidently, and we didn't see that Deignan, who did an amazing ride, broke away just before the first cobble section. So she rode the whole race away, 80-something kilometres. Amazing. I would like to have seen that. Bit disappointing, but hey, you did right, Dan. They got out of jail. The weather was wet, but it wasn't ridiculous. They could still ride down the edges of the road on the dirt, and they got out of jail. But still, some horrendous crashes. But I just thought it was a wonderful race.
What were your thoughts, Stewie?
Yeah, I've got to agree there. I was pretty disappointed when the coverage came on and it was 50k to go. I was kind of settled in and ready to watch the whole race. So I think I share the same thoughts as a lot of people that with that kind of occasion, it would have been fantastic to see the girls race from start to finish. But in saying that, at the same time, for all the girls that were out there on the bike, what a monumental challenge and to be a part of history. It kind of delivered everything which we thought it would. It's super. Look, Paris-Roubaix in the wet. It's not fun. It's not funny. I know a lot of people go, it's awesome. It's going to be great TV. Well, unless you've been on a bike and kind of sprinting into a section at 55, 60k an hour and you hit a wet cobble, it's very dangerous. So I was pretty concerned for the riders, to be honest. And obviously there were a lot of crashes, and it's going to be even worse tonight. It's one thing, to have a bike race and sure, it makes great footage and everything, but the two Paris-Roubaix I tried, I did in the wet, both ended up with me with my kneecap about the sides of my my torso. So it's dangerous out there, and but yeah, hopefully most of the riders got through. I haven't seen too much of a report on the damage, but look, at the end of the day, it was a fantastic race. Pity about Sarah Roy in the final. I thought she would have had a really good chance there to get on the podium, and she looked really comfortable. She looked strong. So that was a bit of a disappointment personally. But yeah, really looking forward to tonight.
It always dishes up amazing photos, Paris-Roubaix, and Christophe Mon got the classic after the finish there of Sarah Roy being hosed down by Nico with the high-pressure hose before she got on the path. I suppose one of the problems with the crashes, Stewie, is the possibility of infection when you're dealing with mud.
Yeah, look, it's not pretty. I mean, you eat a lot, you swallow a lot. It's going in everywhere. So, as everybody says, when you finish your Paris-Roubaix, every single person that's taken that start line has got their own story to tell at the end of the race. A few have really good ones, have great memories, but for the other 99%, something happened. You got caught behind a crash. I mean, the thing with Paris-Roubaix, especially in the wet, first bit of advice is getting the breakaway because you've got less stress, a little bit of a head start, and you only have to deal with the people that are in the breakaway, and you can choose your line. But when you're in the peloton coming into that first section, it's worse than any bunch sprint you could imagine, because you're dealing with not just a bunch of sprinters, but classics guys. There's the chaos. It's left and right, and it's just so dangerous. And the importance of being at the front is kind of magnified in Paris-Roubaix. You have to be, even in a breakaway, you have to be first or second. I had my own little theory where every bike rider in front of me was a potential disaster. That was another drink bottle that could come bouncing out and end my race. So I always, if I could, like to start second wheel, even first, and then you can let someone come past and take over, in the longer sections. But every person that's in front of you is just one more person that can take you out.
It's amazing.
A lot of talk, if he was about things like the prize money as well. Guy said, great racing. Masanda learned the women's winner only got 1/20th of the prize money the men will earn. Women, €1,500, men, €30,000. It's one of those things where it's just like, if you're going to do it, rip the Band-Aid off, because in terms of TV viewers last night, the anticipation for that event was as good as anything. Men, women, whatever. Like, so many people would have been shooting in. If you're going to do it, just go all out. Just do it the same.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to remember, though, cycling is very different to a lot of other sports. It's never been about the prize money. When you look at the men's prize money, that's a joke compared to how big the sport is at a world scale, especially in Europe. And you compare the prize money of cycling to most other sports, to tennis and golf and all of those things. It's just ridiculous. But our structure is different. It's in your contracts and all of those sort of things. And the women, they're much worse off. And you're dead right, Dan. It's spot on. Rip the Band-Aid off. Just finally got it. Do it properly. That's almost a slap in the face, that little amount of prize money.
Annette Miller said Annemiek van Vleuten broke her pubic bone in 2 places. It's not good to hear. So as you said, epic edition. And a lot of that, like Will Wizard said, there was no TV for anyone until 52K to go. And lots of crashes happen in the Deignan town circuit, and the worst mud sections are earlier. So all the great images that you would have seen, obviously not from a rider's perspective, Stu, but that was all early in the race. And again, if you're going to do the coverage, I mean, it's also good for the crews. I know it's more expensive, but it's a dry run as well. Like, cover the whole thing from the start, because people would have been tuning in, and their sponsors are going to get paid as
ridiculous. Well, and as our last caller just said, it wasn't SBS problem. That was
that's right.
When the feed came out, it was just terrible. I felt for them as well. I know they wanted to do it. I mean, they started early. I thought when it started on telly, I said, we're going to see the first bit of cobbles. But they had to fill in for nearly an hour, whatever. But before we get off that, I just wanted to say 2 things. One, while we mentioned Sarah Roy, and like you, Stewie, I thought she was in for a really good ride, top 10 for sure, and maybe even on the podium. She looked so good, and that was a terrible crash. Matter of fact, I didn't know that she would get up from it, but she still finished 25th or 6th, something like that. So it was a very impressive ride, and I loved the little interview with her after the finish. She just was so happy to be there. She said, at least I'll have a Paris-Roubaix story to tell. Might be the one I wanted, but I'll have one to tell, which was fantastic. She was great. And I just have to take my hat off to the winner, Lizzy Deignan. That was a ride. She went away right before the first bit of cobbles, and away all day. And when Marianne Vos went, it was nearly 20K to go, chasing her, and took nearly a minute in no time at all. I thought, she's going to catch her. But hey, that's as close as she got. She got there a minute 17, and that's where she stayed. So absolutely brilliant effort from Lizzy.
Got a question for you from David Shuey. He says, Lizzy won on 30mm tubeless tyres. What size did you ride in the EU one in 2007? And would you ride tubeless or tubes if riding now? And what size? Cheers.
Maybe a different terminology. No, we had tubeless tyres, obviously. I don't think there's anything else you'd want to race in Paris-Roubaix. The risk of pinching tubes is just, percentages just go through the roof. So, we had singles, as we called them back in the day, and 28s, so a bit smaller. But I think 28s anyway. I'll have to have a look. It's been a while. Look, at the end of the day, the pressure is really critical. On a normal race, on a normal stage in the Tour de France, for example, or any other bike race where it's not going over cobbles, you'd have about 8.5 bar in your tyres, whereas for Paris-Roubaix, I think I had 5.5 in my front and 5 bar in my back. So pretty soft when you're on the normal road, on the normal bitumen, but certainly helped you out over the cobbles.
Yeah, and just to fill that in for the last viewer, they were with tubs, as he calls them, or singles as we call them, Stewie, in the old days. They have got a tube. They've got a tube in them, they're really light. But now you've got three variations. So you've got singles, you've got tubeless high pressure tyres, and tubed high pressure tyres. So there's 3 different types. And I know some of the teams like Bike Exchange Road riding both today. Some are riding clinchers and some are riding singles.
At the end of the day, it's got to be your personal decision because you're the one riding the bike. So you obviously do get a lot of pressure from the sponsors who, especially in races like Paris-Roubaix, they want to come out and show off a new, Roubaix edition or whatever. But certainly we use different tyres and different wheels through my career. And, if that meant using a bit of a black marker pen to cover up your sponsor, look, at the end of the day, you've got one occasion a year to have a crack at Paris-Roubaix, and you've got to make sure that when you're on the start line, you're happy with everything that's on your bike. So there might be a bit of pressure from sponsors, etc., but you've got to make sure you have the best material possible. And everyone's different, so some people like different kind of things.
It's funny when Hayman came across to Green Edge in 2014, before Roubaix, he was super stressed going into the race. So he was having these barneys with the mechanics about the testing the tyre pressure and all that to be true, right? 2015, they're locking horns again. They couldn't work it out. And, Lars, wanting him to ride certain frames and they're coming to blows. Then 2016, he just, whatever. He literally said to Lars, yeah, I don't care what you do, mate. And there was no stress because obviously he was stoked to be there. And it's amazing how much nervous energy, Stewie, can be burnt leading into the race.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you just got to make sure, again, the amount of nervous energy that you can burn before a race is crazy. So you've just got to, you've got to try and be calm. Again, it's like before an Olympic Games or a world title or any other big event. You've got to try and take it, as I used to try and do a bit later on in life, was just go, it's just another bike race. Like, yeah, okay, it's all good to be, nervous. If you're not nervous on the start line, then you're lying, to be honest. I mean, every athlete gets nervous on the start line, but to just try and, to think about, okay, the media are here, but don't get too caught up in it. Try and, just stick to your same routine that you do every other day of the year. You're racing exactly the same blokes that you race every stage of every race throughout your career. You've just got to try and eliminate all that kind of nervous energy that you burn. You've got to stop going down and checking your bike 15 times. You got to have trust in the mechanics. You got to have trust in, the chef and what you're eating. Trust in the masseur, and just go. You know what? It's just a bike race. As long as you try and get there fit and healthy, then the rest, it's up to the cycling gods to sort out, I guess.
It'd be worth having a couple of stubbies just over dinner the night before. Just take your mind off it. Get a good sleep in. Because if you got a video sent through from Brett Lancaster this morning, here's the weather update. Thanks, Bert. It is bucketing down.
Yeah, that was just a few minutes ago from his hotel, and you spoke to Bill. Yeah. It does. Yeah, Bill said it hasn't stopped raining since last night. Yeah.
He said from 5 p.m. till all night, and it's still bucketing down. It has not stopped. And I said, "Oh, you're on the bus now?" And he goes, "No, I'm having a nervous poo."
Oh well, no. But, I mean, I've never actually experienced where you wake up in Paris-Roubaix and it's actually bucketing with rain. So that just makes it even worse. I mean, I actually really feel sorry for the guys. It's going to be absolute carnage out there today. So look, these are the days where I'm hearing the wind is quite strong, a bit of a westerly wind. So there's 90k. There's 90k from Compiègne to the first section. So don't be surprised if a Quick Step, the Koenig and another team try and actually just destroy it in that first section, because it's going to come down to numbers. And then, these are the days that a breakaway gets away. They're a couple of minutes up the road, and it's just a massive elimination race from behind. So it's going to be absolutely crazy. Look, I'm just really glad to be watching it from the couch, but I'm actually concerned. It's going to be horrible.
Well,
Yeah,
2002 is the last proper one that the men did, which was wet. Were you in that edition, Stu? And what were your memories, if you were?
Yeah, I was. I was in that one. I was doing okay. Like many blokes were doing okay, but I was probably in the bottom of that one actually.
Yeah.
But we just came flying into and these are one of the early years when you learn that stuff, which I was just talking about earlier. About I think I came into a section about 10th wheel, thinking, this is good. I'm surrounded by I've got Maceos and all the guys I wanted near me. And then the guy in front of you wipes out, and then bang, I ended up smacking my knee on a cobblestone, and I actually couldn't move, so I was over on the side in the mud, and the whole race just went past me, and I ended up hitchhiking to the feed zone in a farmer's Peugeot, but that's another story. But no, it didn't finish too well. Again, you're racing along and you think you're in control, and then once the guys start crashing, you can't brake, you can't stop. The best form of defense is just to try and actually crash to the side and not hit a cobble, because landing on the cobbles really hurts.
We've got a comment from Samantha. Can Luke do it, Stewie? It's obviously talking about Luke Durbridge.
Yeah, look, I think Durbo can. He's probably been, a rider which I've said, when asked which Australian can bring home a rock down under. Look, Durbo's the man for the job. He's got years of experience. He's big, he's strong. He's got the skill set. He just needs a bit of luck, and that can happen. And not that I'm a betting man, but I see he's about 501 to 1 at the moment, so he's worth chucking a couple of dollars on.
Wow.
So yeah, it's days like this. They pop up every now and then, like a Service Carnarvon or myself. Where the big favourites kind of are too busy watching themselves, and these opportunities come around about every 10 years. So all in for Durbo tonight, 100%.
Do you think that they'll be able to take a bit out of what happened in the women's edition? In fact, how hard it's going to be to make ground if a break does get away?
Nah, look, at the end of the day, I think, there's so much going on. All you can do is I think I read someone said earlier, you can have so many plans, you can sit around all night conjuring up with plans A, B, C, and D. At the end of the day, you've just got to get out there and you've got to make things happen. You can't sit back and in a day like this, you can't wait and be defensive. You have to be the team that is offensive and try and never get put on the back foot. So that's why I think teams, if it is windy and wet, they will try and, basically just eliminate as many of their opponents as possible early on. So then you got less guys to worry about coming into the first section. And I guarantee you that coming into that first section, once you come off the highway after about 90K and you've got about 10K through the suburbs to the first section, there's going to be absolute carnage, because you're always trying to, catch up a few positions here and there, jumping up on the footpath, jumping around guys. It's slippery. You're desperate. A lot can go wrong. So you just got to put yourself in the best possible position and hope to God, to be honest.
Carolyn's got a question for you. Sorry. What is the rule with riders riding on the grass or the edge, not on the cobbles?
Whatever gets from A to B as quick as possible. Look, it's a funny one, that one, because in the dry, it's obviously a lot easier to go to the side and ride up the side, but that's where all the rocks and the dirt and the crap is, and the holes which you can't quite see are all on the side. So all the cars and the motorbikes that go before the race, there's actually quite a big convoy of vehicles that go through. All the crap gets thrown into the side. So if you're going to puncture, that's where it's going to happen. You never, ever puncture going straight down the middle of the cobbles, but straight down the middle of the cobbles is hard. So you've really got to go, you'll see a lot of the guys early on, everyone's straight down the middle. And especially in the wet, you certainly don't want to be on the sides because you actually can't see the size of the holes. And now also that the amateurs have already raced, you've had a Grand Fondo and the women, the road on the side is actually just going to be destroyed. So there's going to be a lot of big potholes, which all look like a nice little flat puddle, which if you hit one, you could lose half your front wheel in. So you've got to try and go down the middle. And again, that's what creates the crashes before you get to the sections, because everybody's thinking exactly the same thing. You've got to be in the first few.
Iffy.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, you've ridden a couple of wet Paris-Roubaix, but there is no one on the start line today that has ridden a wet Paris-Roubaix. So it's going to be something new for them all. But you're spot on before. I reckon De Koenig Quickstep will really try and put pressure on right from the start. They're the team that's got probably the most depth, but they probably haven't got someone who can beat, say, Van Aert or Van der Poel. So that will be their way. They'll be going on numbers, trying to get guys up the road. I reckon it'll be on right from the start.
Pushka says, why is everyone sleeping on Dylan Van Baarle? He was so strong at the Worlds. I tip him for a podium finish. What do you reckon, Stewie?
Oh, look, I think he's got to prove himself in a Paris-Roubaix. I think anybody at the World Championships is a very different rider to what's out there today. Yes, he's Belgian. Yes, he's he's obviously super talented. Yes, he's got great form, but can he box on before a section of cobblestones in a wet Roubaix? Pogacar and those guys have got great form as well, but you don't see them on the start line. Today's a very different beast, which takes this. You're not there just to be a part of the team. You're there to try and do a job. And look, that's not to say he won't have a get up the road and probably now win it, because I've said that. But there's a lot of guys that obviously his favourites are Van Aert and Van der Poel, with their cyclocross skills. But even that, cyclocross is one thing. Riding cobbles in the wet and the muds is a different kettle of fish. So there's a lot of guys. I look through that start list. There's a few favourites, and then there's a whole bunch of people that could potentially win. Your Daniel Losses, the guys that are big, strong blokes, which are like the plan B normally, and without a Sagan there. Well, is Sagan there? I think he's on the start sheet.
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's those kind of guys that get to go in that break that all of a sudden find themselves out the front. Not with that pressure of being a leader, and all of a sudden there's a big crash behind and things happen behind, and you can find yourself winning the bike race. So there's 50 guys that could win tonight.
And it's always the way when it's cold and wet. It's the guys with a bit more meat on their stick, the sort of more solid guys that end up doing really well. What were you going to say, Johnny?
I'd just say I've got Van Baarle as one of my outsiders, because he is quite good on the cobbles. He's a Dutchie, not a Belgie, Stuart, but that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Close. Just
I always make one mistake on this show.
That's all right. I make 2 or 3 on every show, but anyway, it's nothing to do with it. But I follow him a bit because he won the Sun Tour a couple of years ago. So, that makes me keep an eye on him. He joined our club, Stewie. But no, I think he great ride in the Worlds, way early as well, and still managed to get the silver medal in the Worlds, and does go quite well on the cobbles. So
we always
eight in Paris-Roubaix, and has ridden cyclocross. So Sagan riding mechanical gears. Well, there you go. Don't blame him.
And Kirsty loves a punt. Highest Aussie is Heinrich at $34. Heino would be a very good chance today to be up the pointy end, you'd reckon? Another guy.
Yeah, I'd say Heinrich Hausler a couple of years ago, I would say definitely. And he's had a pretty good year. He's going all right, but I don't know whether he's in the form to get a top 10, but he's capable. He was. So we've got 6 Aussies. So we've got Luke Durbridge, Mitch Docker, Heinrich Hausler, young Harry Sweeney riding, Rob Stanhardt and Simon Clark. So we've got 6 Aussies on the start line. I personally think Durbo is the standout there, and Mitch Docker. He is it's his final race. He's retiring after today.
I got to say a special mention to Mitch. I think it's fantastic for him. To bow out is a great career. He's a fantastic teammate. It was a pleasure to share a team bus with Mitch. He was such a good bloke, and all the best to him today. I mean, it's going to be pretty scary. He had obviously had a major accident in Roubaix and really hurt himself a few years ago. So for him, I actually feel sorry for him. Would have been praying for a nice dry Roubaix. So all our thoughts go to Mitch, that he gets through safely and that he gets to Roubaix. And then good luck for the rest of his the next stage of his life.
Now, to get people fired up, I want to fire up the Detour DeLorean Iffy. There's the stick.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
2013, Forest of Arenberg. Stewie's in the front group. Matty Heyman's there. But you throw in the epic commentary, the epic part of the course, and some Puff Daddy. Oh, mate, this gets me going. And some great slow-mos of Stewie.
Here we go. This is the Arenberg Trench as they're coming up to it. 4 riders. It's okay for these guys, but they are going to hit this as hard as they possibly can when they arrive with the peloton. But you look at the bumping and boring of these men here. Now behind them, though, Sean, it's going to be like a flat-out sprint, isn't it, to get in here at the right position. That's why Tor Hulshoff had a puncture exactly the wrong time. You've got to be at the front, and it's almost like a lead-out for a sprint to get into this Arenberg section.
Yes, and I think it's worse than some of the big sprints we see at the end of a race, because there's so many riders want to be up front. Still with 80 riders, there's a lot of riders feeling really good, and it can be just hectic as we can see the bunch going on to the Arenberg section.
McDonald's at the back there, they're just piling through at the moment.
Who's going to win the race today?
Chavanel.
Chavanel? O'Grady? O'Grady?
Chavanel is good.
They obviously don't know the Freckle.
They're only young. They're only young.
Now, how much will it benefit or hinder the riders the fact that the last time they raced Arenberg, they didn't have the barricades on the side? Whereas this year they do. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, do you think?
It's a good thing if you're a spectator, a bad thing if you're a bike rider, because it got to certain points on multiple occasions where I was way too out of position coming into the Arenberg, and the only way to get to the front was to actually stop, go through the crowd, get on that bike path, and then just gas it as quick as you could and try and make up some space. Then someone had the bright idea to put the barricades up, so it certainly magnifies the Arenberg. I mean, it was already the hardest section by a mile. Now they put the barriers up. There's no place to hide, and all of a sudden that pathway through the forest feels so much skinnier and tighter, and the crowd's hanging over the barriers. It's actually it's really pretty scary. Look, great memories back then. That was my last Paris-Roubaix, and to be out in the break and to be able to go through there and in the front was a cool memory. The race didn't plan out how I wanted, but at over 40 years old, I was pretty happy just to be up the front, to be honest.
Before we let you go, Stuart, because Iffy interviewed last night Mitch Docker and Matt Hayman, so that'll be after the break. But who's your tip for this year's edition, mate?
Yeah, well, look, I think I've gone with Stibar for the last 4 editions. For kind of the reason I said before, he's a big, strong bloke. He's proved himself. He's been up there for so many years, but he just always never really delivered for Roubaix. I'm not going to pick him this year, so he'll probably go and win it now. I'm going to go Casper Asgreen. I think he's got great form. He's a big, strong bloke. He's a bit of a machine, and I just think with the Koenig's strength in numbers, look, as I said, there's 50 blokes that could win the race. The obvious is the Van Aerts, Van der Poel, but I'm going to go for Asgreen.
Is this where, John, you kick and you go, that was my tip?
There they are.
Come on, Johnny.
There they are. I got Casper Asgreen, Michael Valgren, Wout van Aert, and Matthew van der Poel, and Stibar. So my picks. So
there we go. I don't need any notes, but and look, I'm also I've got a darkie in there. I'd love to see Durbo get up. I think what a stellar piece of artwork that'd make for his trophy cabinet. But look, just all the best for everyone out there tonight. I can't wait. For me, this is my grand final day, so I'm pretty pumped.
Enjoy, mate. Well, we appreciate you being on the detour. Fantastic insights. What better from a 2007 winner himself? So we'll check in again soon, mate. And enjoy the spectacle.
Oui. Thanks, guys.
See you, Stuart.
I'm just doing
Take it easy.
fantastic, mate.
Stuart O'Grady, fantastic insights, as we said, for this year's edition of Paris-Roubaix. We're going to take a drinks break, and after the break, we've got interviews with Mitch Docker and the 2016 winner and now DS of Bike Exchange, Matt Hayman.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Life is like a two-way street. It's about consideration and mutual respect. Roads are much the same. However you get around, walk, ride or drive, if we share our roads, we can all be safer. The Amy Gillett Foundation is Australia's peak cycling safety charity. Our mission is for safe cycling in Australia. Our vision is for 0 cyclist deaths. Over the last year, we've seen an enormous increase in people taking up cycling, whether it be for recreation, with the family, commuting, or even to start your own cycling career. We need to do more to make it safer for every cyclist. 20 cyclists every day are hospitalised, and 1 cyclist is killed every 10 days on Australian roads. So, the next time you jump on your bike or hop in your car, remember to practice the 4 C's. Be courteous, calm, considerate and conscientious. Every cyclist death is preventable, and we all deserve to get home safely. Please donate to help the Amy Gillett Foundation make the roads safer for you and for me.
Thanks again to Bike Exchange. We simply wouldn't be able to do the show without their support, and the Amy Gillett Foundation are great partners as well, because it's a great message and well spoken by Phil Liggett. Got a couple more comments. Our mate Tom Maloney says, I've long been yelling at the TV at 2 a.m. Robbie McEwen was initially responsible, but the loudest yell wasn't when Stewie won his Paris-Roubaix. It was when his teammate crashed on a corner, and I thought it was Stewie. That was an epic edition of the Paris-Roubaix. That had heaps of twisted turns. Johnny?
It was. Well, interestingly, we didn't get a chance to talk to Stewie about it, but it was the exact opposite of what's happening today. It was probably the driest ever. It was so hot and dry. The dust was coming up, and it was an amazing ride. Stewie, who was in the breakaway, and then in the longest section, he punctured, and there was no car, so he had to go back to the chasing group. And which he said, oh, bugger, I'm going to have to, because he was riding for Cancellara, was defending champion. So he got back there. He actually had a little slip off there. So he was actually behind the main peloton, got back on, gets up to Cancellara. Cancellara says, I don't feel so good, Stewie, go for yourself. And Stewie said, I didn't even have to wait to confirm that. Someone else had attacked, the German guy attacked. Next minute, bang, away went Stewie right on the wheel. And he rode back up to the break. So he's been in the break, out the back, and then rode away from them on his own. It was an amazing victory.
We did a really good interview with Stewie and Fabian Cancellara about the Roubaix. So go on YouTube and search the Detour, Stewie and Fabian, and you'll see a fantastic episode, because they talk about both their journeys. And yeah, it was really good. Sally says, watching the Croatian tour, they came in late. However, at least have a recap from the start of the show to show what happened when the break, etc. No reasons why they couldn't have done that for the women. It's a good point. They usually do like a compilation.
I agree,
package.
Sally.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It was really disappointing, actually. Yeah.
Wheel Wizard says, as Bike Exchange run out of riders, not fielding a full team of 7. And then he said, Pete Williams says, overall, Bike Exchange is struggling for riders. Konachev crashed in Recon yesterday.
Yes, and I think that's why they had a full team, and I'm not sure that he's on the start line now, but they definitely had the 7 in. But some of that is news to me. I didn't realise they were fielding one down.
And people have asked about the coverage. They will be covering the whole race. I think you can see it on demand on SBS here in Australia. And Will Wizard said the coverage starts in an hour. So they'll probably show up from the gun, I'd say. Now, as we said at the top of the show, you caught up with Mitch Docker last night because obviously today is going to be his final race in Europe. Here's part one of the interview with Mitch.
Well, here we are. Mitch Docker, your final swan song, mate. It's hard to believe that, but tomorrow is going to be your final bike race. So just tell us a little bit about the story, mate.
Well, the story in most recent times has been a little bit of a controversial one because, you know, a little while ago I was thinking I'll just finish at Roubaix. I had a fantastic little program lined up and I was going to do the Benelux Tour. I was going to do a Wallonie. I was going to do another race called Van Petegem and then Deignan. And I was just going to roll straight into Roubaix with a bit of racing. But lo and behold, I broke my elbow middle of an eco tour or Benelux Tour. And spanner was thrown in the works. I didn't know if I was going to get back in time, but I did it. I did a Matt Hayman 2.0. I went on the ergo. I grabbed myself a step ladder. I put my arm in there. I had a look. I got some advice off Matty. And I've been on the ergo, and I've managed to get back just in time for Roubaix. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I'm here anyway.
Which is fantastic, mate. We were just talking to Matty Hayman only just a short time back, and we're talking about, you know, of course, all the glory and the beauty of his ride in 2016 and his win. But 2016 wasn't quite so good for you because take us through that absolute disaster, as it turned out.
Well, yeah, that was a crash and a half. That one coming into Arenberg, you know, The short of the story is I was off the back of the peloton from a crash from the sector before, and I was just trying to get back to the peloton on Arenberg and potentially went into that sector a little bit over keen and was just really hit the stones, and I lost control there and ended up landing on my face. And everyone or anyone might know the story. You can look it up and you'll find out pretty quickly what happened there. But it was a turning point in my career. Sort of that was in 2016, you know, whatever that was now, it's 5-6 years ago. And I'm still here now racing because of that point, because it allowed me to stop, reassess what was going on in my life, in my career, and then go and have another go at it. And I've been really, in a weird way, grateful for that because it's allowed me to have this sort of second part of my career where I've enjoyed a completely different role and a different sort of part of my cycling life. And now I'm finishing at that race that sort of, first of all, I fell in love with, secondly, stopped me and allowed me to reassess, and now I can finish on it.
There's a wonderful, I was just reading some wonderful quotes from Velo News, and you talk about Paris-Roubaix as it defeats you, but you want to come back and try and defeat it. So have you defeated it yet?
I think was the only year that I had that one special year back in 2010 where I finished 15th, and that sort of hung over me from my whole career. You could say positively and negatively too. Positively because it gave me the belief that I can be up there, but negatively because you're always trying to strive to do better than that, and sometimes it feels like it can block you in a way. But I don't still see that as my best ride in the race. There's been some other years where I've done some fantastic rides and I had a real opportunity in those early days to go on the breakaway. Yet as my career's gone on, I've tried to race with the best and do it a different way. So I've probably been defeated by the race more times than I've conquered it. But I don't know. I love the challenge of it. I'm scared of the challenge this weekend because there's going to be some more elements. It's going to be a wet, rough one, and I think it's going to be one of those ones, like always, that you're going to look back upon very fondly, but in the moment you're probably not going to love it.
I was reading somewhere, it surprised me actually, that there's no one on the start line tomorrow that's ever ridden a wet Paris-Roubaix, which includes you, of course. So I suppose it's a little bit fitting that at least you'd be able to say, yeah, I rode one wet one.
We always say we should do it, and looking at those images from 2001, 2002, again, I'm quickly forgetting how hard it is, even as a cyclist, and knowing how hard it is. Watching it on TV, you just can't understand that. And I'm looking at it going, it's not too bad, I don't think. And I can just really have to take myself out of the image there and go, it is horrible. It's 6 degrees and rain, let alone how slippery it is. It's just going to be a war. There's really no other word for it. Like, and we always thought, oh, it's going to be a war out there. That will be an epic war tomorrow if it rains like it's predicted.
Now, before we go to part 2, Iffy, Sporza in Belgium have just posted some latest pics of the course. So it is an absolute bog heap. Look at the gumboots. Like that scares you.
I think I'd be putting cleats on the gumboots. I mean, we're laughing, but it seriously makes it. It's going to be the biggest raffle of all time. Yeah, forget about it. I've got my winners here, but it's a raffle tomorrow or today.
Yeah. All right. Here's part 2 of your interview with Mitch Docker.
And you're very popular in the peloton. You've got your great podcast, Live in the Peloton, but do you think your popularity will help you? We reckon that'll people will say, "Oh, look, there's Mitch. We'll give him a little bit of room here." Do you think that'll help?
In the peloton, I don't think so. I think that kind of stuff has gone out of the peloton a few years ago. No matter who you are, no one gets any room anymore. Whether you're a good rider or whether you're a popular guy. And I think tomorrow's going to be one of those days where no one wants to give anyone room. I actually was watching the 2001 edition of Paris-Roubaix just the other day, and there's a great interview with Stuart O'Grady at the start. And Stewie says, you know what you're going to have to do today is you're going to have to be in the top 5 wheels the whole day, in the first sector, and the whole time you're going to have to fight for the top 5 wheels. And it sounds like an obvious thing, but that's what the fight's going to be for tomorrow, because anything behind top 5 is just going to be carnage, dangerous, slippery. You're not going to be able to see. So I think it's just going to be, there's a lot of wind predicted, which I think actually in the hindsight is a good thing, because it's maybe could split the race up a little bit. And by the time we get to the first sector, some of the selections may be already made. So my prediction for me is it splits early, group of 40 go in the front. I just managed to scrape in there. We hit the first few sectors. I get through that. Lo and behold, coming into Arenberg, there's 30 guys left. And I come across Arenberg with the first 20 guys, and then we see what happens from there.
That sounds like a great plan, mate. So with other years, as you mentioned, a break gets up the road, and it's a real race to Arenberg, to the Forest of Arenberg. That's when the real pressure comes on. But I reckon with it being wet, that's going to change right back to the first sector.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think if there wasn't wind predicted, it would have been, and it could still be, like I said, that fight for the top 5 wheels into that first sector is pretty important anyway, especially tomorrow. And it's like a bunch sprint. I said to someone the other day, I potentially have more chance of winning a race than being first into the first sector tomorrow, because it's that hard to be first in there. It's so fast. And that's going to be probably the most dangerous part. But hopefully, I say this in a weird way, hopefully it's really, really windy and it's a lot of echelons, that there is a bit of a selection before. And I think even if you're in the second or third group in the echelons, it doesn't mean your race is over, because there's going to be problems, there's going to be guys. And this is such a race, like Matty Heyman says, you just got to keep riding and you'll ride back on and ride back through.
Now, you touched on your crash in the Benelux Tour, which is only just over a month ago. And just take us through the actual, look, it's broken elbow. It's pretty serious. So how have you got yourself to be here on the start line?
Yeah, it was a bit more serious than we thought. Like, I rode through the end of the stage there. I broke it at kilometre 0. It was a big crash. And initially I thought it was my wrist, and we just rode through. The doc said it wasn't broken. So as a typical cyclist, if it's not broken, you shouldn't pull out. That's just a bit of a soft move. So I rode through, and it just wasn't right. I couldn't really even stand up on the bars. So we did get it x-rayed, and in the end it was a cracked radius, the top of the radius where it joins at the elbow there. We just threw it in a car straight away with the idea of, let's get this repaired as soon as possible with a chance of riding Roubaix. I did 10 days in the cast just on the ergo, and then another sort of 5-6 days with a cast off on the ergo, and then I went out on the road. But I have to admit, even when I went out on the road, sort of would have been just inside 2 weeks before this race, the first few sessions, I really doubted if I would make Roubaix because I just felt so far away of riding normally. I could ride along, but in order to race, you got to pull on the bars, you got to be able to sprint when you need to, you got to be able to brake efficiently. I couldn't do all that stuff. I could roll along on a cruisy bunch ride, but every day it's just got better and better and better, and still not 100%. The thing that worries me the most is just the function of my hand. All the ligaments and things like that are a little bit tight and sore. So braking and getting out of the seat for me isn't still natural. But it's good enough. You know, I've done the recon. I did 16 sectors and it wasn't hurting it that much. So if I can do that, I think I'm ready for the big one.
Well, as you say, the similarities with Matty Hayman are enormous for the fact that you were in that, you crashed in that race and he won. This is your 10th, is it your 10th? Or yeah, I think this is your 10th Paris-Roubaix and your final race. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have the same sort of fairy tale, mate?
I don't know if I'm in that kind of form, but you never know. You just never know with this race. And like I said, if something plans out like I predicted, and you come off Arenberg in the front group, it's a funny thing, Roubaix. You know, guys start drifting away, and you don't know what happened. You think, oh, that's strange. What's he doing? He's dropping back to go get something from the car. Oh no, he's just getting dropped. It's a funny race like that. It's a very fatiguing race, and you know, one of my attributes is long racing. As I've got older, it suited me more. Look, I'm not writing it off, but I think it'll be a real long shot. But anyway, I'm in there, so that's the start.
Now, if your team have had like a brilliant year and some great performances right throughout the season, have you got any other role? Who in your team do you think has got the best chance tomorrow?
We've got two guys that are going really well. Michael Valgren, who was just third at the World Championships. He hasn't ridden Roubaix before, but he's really moving well. He won 2 races just before the Worlds. He finished third at the Worlds last week. And then we've also got classic specialist Sebastian Langeveld, who's finished third here before and been in the top 10 another time as well. I think this is his 14th edition at Roubaix, so he knows what to do here. Plus, the team's actually just quite a strong team. We got Stefan Bissinger, who was leading the Unico Tour, or the Benelux Tour a few weeks ago. He rode the Worlds as well, rode very well in the time trial of the Worlds. Jonas Rusch, who's a young German who's very strong, suits him here. We got Tom Scully, who's just a powerhouse on the cobbles. And we've got another young Dutchie, Julius Vandenberg. So, like, I think it's a strong squad. And like I said, if it ends up turning out like we said in the crosswinds, I wouldn't be surprised if we have majority of our team or, you know, the whole of our team in that front group. And then we can just see what happens and play some cards from there.
That's sensational. Look, I just want to thank you, Mitch, for coming on board and wishing you well tomorrow. And I can tell you now that everyone watching that TV tomorrow will be rooting for Mitch Docker. It's been a fantastic career. You've been an absolute legend. And I just wish you all the best for tomorrow, bud.
Thanks, guys. And I'll see if I can get my face on the front for a little bit.
Great interview there, Iffy, with Mitch Docker. Now, Stewie sent me another photo. Oh, it just looks absolutely filthy. Now, a few comments are coming in. Kim Dixon said, is there a point where they would consider cancelling the race due to the conditions?
No.
All right, that answers that. Moving along, you also did an interview with Matt Hayman, obviously winner of 2016, and now he's leading Bike Exchange's chances. And we spoke earlier about Luke Durbridge. So here's the interview we did with Matty last night.
Okay. So, Matty Hayman, how are you, mate? What's it like? I was going to say, what's it like in sunny Belgium today? But I guess I hear it's not too sunny.
No, I'm in France here. We are actually at this hotel. We're only about 5 kilometres from the entry to Arenberg. And we've just gone out for a little ride, and it rained quite heavily last night, and it's currently dry, quite windy, and the women are due to start in a couple of hours here. So, yeah, it's shaping up to be quite a race on the weekend.
Yeah, look, it's hard to imagine a weekend of Paris-Roubaix. So before we'll touch on the men's in a minute, but as you mentioned, and I don't know why I said Belgium, probably.
We're pretty close. We're pretty close to Belgium.
Pretty close. I know that. But yeah, so women's race. So first ever women's Paris-Roubaix. And they're going to get a wet one by the looks of it. So what are the conditions looking like for start in a couple of hours?
Yeah, look, a lot of rain overnight, and we just went out and had a look at a couple of sectors. So the sector before Arenberg, and that's not one that the women do today. But yeah, it's going to be muddy, it's going to be slippery, and there's a lot of puddles out there. So they are, going to get the full experience on their first time round, and something that the men's race has been waiting for since probably the early 2000s to have another wet one. So they are straight into it.
Yeah. So
dry out in time between, what we just saw today, what we just saw an hour ago, there's not going to be much change for them in the next couple of hours. So it's going to be very wet.
So going back to, before we start on tomorrow's race, going back to your early days, did you ride one of the wet ones? When was your first Paris-Roubaix?
2000 was my first Paris-Roubaix, and I've done two full wet Roubaix and a wet stage in Tour de France as well, 2014. But no, yeah, I've done two wet Roubaix, and it's a different beast. It's totally different to a dry version. So there's not a lot of explaining that I can do to the guys, but it just slows the race down a lot. There's a lot of crashes, a lot of punches, a lot of chaos, and it's really hard to know where you are, where your teammates are. You seem to go. I remember going on to one sector, being in a group of 5 guys, and I could swear I came off with 5 different guys. And I don't know, everybody will have a story come Sunday evening about what happened to them. So there's a lot of chaos, but I'm really trying not to broach that with the boys in the lead up. And we're just talking about what we can control, and then we'll go over that after the race.
I was just talking to Jerry Ryan, because I'm up at Nagambie, and as he is, and I'm catching him tomorrow. And I told him I was going to be talking to you, and he said, "Well, make sure you wish Matty all the best, and tell him to wish the guys all the best from him." But I remember being at Jerry's place when he was living in South Yarra, and the Commonwealth Games went right past his front door, and we were up on the balcony watching you take out that Commonwealth Games. That seems like a lifetime ago. What was it, 2006? Gee, that's a long while ago, Matty.
Yeah. I mean, the Roubaix win seems to be fading into as a memory, but 2006, that was a long time ago. But yeah, doing the Commonwealth Games was something I was pretty proud of, and actually going back to Brisbane on the Gold Coast, and finishing off my career there as the last time I represented Australia was pretty special too. So always have fond memories of that race.
I just had a quick look at the old footage of the 2016 Paris-Roubaix, which you won. And it still makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck, so I can imagine what it does for you. And I don't know who was the most excited, you, Matty Wilson, or Dan Jones, because you seemed to be in disbelief. It took you a while to sort of you knew you'd won it, but then you sort of doubted it afterwards. That seemed a real strange sensation.
Yeah, it was. I think I really got into that race mode in the last 10, 15K of the race. And I just kind of felt a bit strange to be throwing my hands in the air. I mean, it's something you dream about. And I kind of put them up there and just wanted to make sure that there was nobody up the road or I hadn't got it wrong. Had I just shattered the dreams of many of Belgian, of him taking out his 5th. So, yeah, there was a moment of I think I just did what I did, but I wasn't quite sure for a little while. And Jonesy came rushing over and confirmed my suspicion.
He did. And I'll tell you what, I was very impressed with Bonan after that. I mean, we know he's a champion, but the way he would have been really disappointed to take the record and all of that, but the way he just embraced your win as pretty special, I thought that was a special moment as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could be so humble in defeat, and especially having won as many as he had and having the weight of his nation on the back of him. I think he was very approachable afterwards and just said straight up, congratulations, it's going to mean a lot to you, it'll change your life. And of course, he's a ultimate competitor at the time, and I was, very intimidated by his presence in that breakaway. But afterwards, he couldn't have been nicer about it.
Now, tomorrow, your DS of the Team Bike Exchange, and Durbo, it's sort of, he's becoming the next Matt Hayman. It's becoming a bit of a quest for him, this race. And so is he the main man for you tomorrow?
Yeah, look, I think we've got a few guys that have the experience of getting around. Jack Bauer's actually come into some good form, but obviously Luke Durbridge and Jack are the strong men of the team. They're here with good form. They're focused about doing this race. They're ready to take this race on, rain, hail, or shine, and we're pretty sure it's going to be raining. And so very much looking to support Durbridge, and he's I think this will be his 7th Roubaix. He's been up there. He's been up in the top 20. He knows what it's all about. And we also got Christian Jensen, who he's just such a strong rider and useful in all terrains. You can have him in the Giro, or you can have him in Paris-Roubaix. And so his attributes will be needed on tomorrow. I was going to say Sunday, but it's fast approaching. So yeah, we'll definitely need Chris there. We've also got Rob Stanhardt. He's a young guy. He's full of courage and he's ready to go. So yeah, we've got Barnabas Peak. It'll be his first. So we've got a couple of new guys. Rob's done it once before, so he kind of knows what he's getting into. So yeah. But we'll be looking to support Luke, and I think he's one of those guys that's shown over the years. Like myself, I see a lot of the same kind of passion for this race in Luke, and I think he's just ready to get on with it now. We've been at the hotel long enough. We've done all the recon. We've done all the work. He knows the form's there. He just wants to get started, and I know exactly what that feels like.
You certainly do. So, look, you've ridden it many times. You've been top 10, on 3 or 4 occasions.
Yeah,
but. And of course, you've got the ultimate prize.
Yeah.
But what's the main bit of knowledge that you think you will impart onto the guys?
Yeah, I think it changes tomorrow with the weather. Had it been a dry one, I would have probably used slightly different tactics. But tomorrow, it's going to be getting ahead of the game. Every time I had a good ride here, I couldn't match the Cancelaras. I couldn't match the Tom Vernons when they really go on a sector. But this race often opens up, and there's so much attacking, there's so much riding that just trying to get ahead of the game, which Stewie did, which I did, which a number of riders have used very successfully in this race. But it's no secret, so everybody will be trying to do that, and so you have to be smart about how you do it.
And even more than usual, keeping out of trouble is what they say you've got to do, and that sounds quite easy. It's not so easy, But being wet, being in that front section of the peloton becomes even more crucial. But it's easy to say, but you've got 100 and something bike riders trying to do the same thing. Yep. What's a little bit of what's a little hint on how you do that?
Yeah, look, elbows, you just have to be there, and you just have to put yourself in position. Look, we'll be coming into the first sector after about 95, 96 kilometres, and the first sector is not too bad, but we run into 3 pretty long sectors straight off the bat. And yeah, look, and I think every single director will be telling their guys we need to be in the front. There's not enough room on the road for everybody. It's probably only going to be 3 or 4 wide. So that's 4 guys that are on the front, and everybody else missed out. So, but we just need to get through and stay out of trouble for the first 2 or 3 sectors. But we've still got 100K of racing before that. Potential strong wins tomorrow. If everybody thinks that the breakaway is not going to go because everybody's so nervous, maybe that's the day the breakaway does go. And we definitely want to be a part of any breaks that go before the first sector. And then positioning and using the teammates, getting in there early, getting one side of the road together as a group, and making sure that they're in position. But as you said, you hit the first sector, and if we put all our energy into that, there's still 150K to the finish line, and that's a long way. And that's it's not. The race is won on the velodrome, not at the first sector, but it's so important tomorrow with the wet to be there.
And I suppose you've had a look at the course today. With a lot of these sectors where normally riders would be riding on the left-hand side or the right-hand side with a bit of dirt, that probably won't be able to happen with the mud. They'll have to stick to the cobbles. Is that the case?
Yeah, look, and even we just did a sector here, the one before Arenberg, which is I think it'll be 19 tomorrow, and quite muddy down the centre. And when you're riding on the ridge, we saw a couple of the guys slipping a little bit, and then they end up in kind of the trough on the side of the road. So normally down the centre is the safest way. You normally got a bit of grass, a little bit of dirt there because the cars don't use the centre, and that's a nice kind of safe way to ride. But if that fills up with mud and you're slipping off that centre ridge down into the troughs, it can get a little bit dangerous. And then once you're down in the troughs, it's often full of water and you can't really see what's under the wheels. So, you have to be a little bit more careful in the wet, and it's more about just getting through those really muddy sections rather than picking a line. You're just trying to stay safe and stay upright. And they are very muddy, and there's not a lot we can do. Look, the tyres have developed since 2001 or 2 when the last wet one was. The tyres are a lot wider, and they've developed in the compounds that they use. But ultimately, I think we're riding on wet, muddy cobblestones, and they're going to be slippery, and there's not a lot we can do about it.
Just on the tyres, are you guys riding your tubulars?
We've got a mix actually, tubeless and tubs or old school singles, 30 millimeters. So yeah, I mean it has. I've never ridden on this tubeless technology that has come from mountain biking, and the guys seem happy with it. And there's some guys that are still on the older style singles, as we used to call them. So a bit of a combination as they still try to work out exactly get the best setup going.
Now, who's your hot tips for tomorrow? Who do you reckon are the big names?
I mean, I'm probably just like everybody else. I mean, I think it might be an outsider. But look, you can't really go past the cyclocross riders for obvious reasons. The skills that they have and the amount of time that they've spent riding around in the mud, slipping around in the mud. So Macho and Walt van Aert, obviously, they're going to be, but there's a lot of pressure on them and a pressure on their teams to have them in position. And as we know, it doesn't take much to change that. Quick Step, it goes without saying, a strong team across the board. They've got options. They can put different people and they will back different guys in the break. So Shelley from up here, read an article about him recently, and he's one of those guys that lives for the cobbles. So he'll be one to watch. He's in great form last week in the World Championships, the French team. And then there's a lot of guys, even Peter Sagan's coming into form. His bike handling is supreme. Get guys like this, he knows how to win this race. I wouldn't count out a Philippe Gilbert just because of his experience. So yeah, I think it's a pretty open race. So yeah.
Sensational. Look, thanks, Matty. Really appreciate your time, and good luck. I wish the guys all the best from Dan and I as well. Go on, you buddy.
I will do. I'll be in touch with them, and we're looking forward to a good one. Thanks, mate.
Matty Heyman there. I was just chatting to Bewley whilst I was playing on WhatsApp, and I sent him all those photos of the wet course. And he's gone, "Oh, bloody hell." I said, "No, mate, only mad bastards will go right today. You'll be right up the front." And he said, "See how this thing holds up," and sent a photo of his arm that's fully taped up with all the sports tape. Because obviously, he's had a few crashes himself. He had a horrific one in 2014 at Roubaix. One of the Cannondale cars took him out just before the Arenberg Forest. But yeah, it's going to be crazy, and fantastic insights from Matty, Mitch, Stewie. Now, one thing I want to say is it's also going to be the last race for Alan Piper as DS. He's hanging the boots up, so I want to say a big shout out to Alan. A lot of people don't know that we've been working on a documentary on Alan, which sort of goes through his life and his career, and obviously dials up what happened, particularly at the Tour de France in 2020 with Tadej Pogacar. and that'll be released in some format next year. So it's the first time sort of been on the tool since All for One, and something that we're really proud of. And he's just such an inspiring character. I'll never forget on the potty last year when we interviewed him the morning of the final stage, and he said, you know, life's about phases, and whatever you're going through, it's just a phase. I mean, yeah, what he's done for so many people as a rider, as a DS, as a friend, he's one of the all-time great characters, not just from Australian cycling, but world cycling. So I want to say a big shout-out to Alan particularly. Iffy.
Yes, well, a superstar. I remember watching him race as a junior in Belgium, and I've followed his career right through. And yeah, love him to death. And he's so inspirational. So I really look forward to seeing the final product. I have been lucky enough to see a fair bit of it. I can tell anyone who's listening, you will be blown away. It is something else.
Yeah, we can't wait to get it out there in some format next year. Anything you want to add before we wrap things up, Johnny?
No, I'm just looking forward to turning that TV on and seeing a little bit more than the last 50K. So, but look, I don't want to end on that because it was a wonderful women's Paris-Roubaix yesterday. But this is going to be something else. And we thought the conditions were a bit hard for them yesterday. Well, as we just saw from those photos, it's going to be much, much worse in today's Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah, and if you do want to get fired up for the big edition, just watch Hayman's win again on YouTube. 2016 Paris-Roubaix. It still gets me every time. I've seen it probably 1,000 times. It's as good as the first time I saw it. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Keep supporting the show. We really do appreciate all the subscriptions, and tell your mates. YouTube.com/The Detour Podcast. We're on Instagram now. Some great work from Katie Brown. From the Gillett Foundation, helping out with our socials. But it does make a difference. So tell all your mates, get behind the show, and we'll be back again soon, because if you turn on the notifications, you'll get alerts when we go live. But we'll definitely be live on Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. every week on the Detour Podcast. And all the best to the riders for what will be an epic edition of the Paris-Roubaix. See you Thursday.
This is the